Live.
Okay, we're here with Constable Rowdy Hayden, and he is an incumbent for Constable Precinct 4. And joining me are John Wirtz, Montgomery County Tea Party, Pat Tibbs, Dennis Tibbs, Bob Bagley, Dell Fessenden, and Larry Rogers. And so as we discussed earlier, let you go ahead and open it up with your opening, up to 5 minutes.
Well, thank you. My name is Kenneth Rowdy Hayden. I'm the elected constable in Precinct 4. And thank you for the opportunity for me to come here and talk to you. I've always been blessed to be one of those people who have always known exactly what I want to do. And in 2009, prior to me being elected, I had prepared for over 20 years to serve in this office. And since then, I've served in that office for 7 years. And, over the last 25 years, I've strived and gained the necessary experience. And I've professionally served Montgomery County for over 23 years. I've served in many different capacities in the county. I've continued to not only further my education in law enforcement, but the deputies there. One thing I want to just bring to your attention, in 2008, the Montgomery County Law Enforcement Association endorsed me. And I want to read to you what they said. They said that I would provide the effective and measurable change needed for the citizens of this county and Precinct 4, and that I would restore a sense of confidence in law enforcement for all citizens of Precinct 4. And I think that's a strong statement. And when they told me that 7 years ago, I think that I've fulfilled that. I was qualified then when I took office then, and I'm qualified now. Recap on a few of the things I campaigned on in 2008. I said I was going to, and I did refocus and redeploy the resources away from the highways and into the neighborhoods. I wanted the neighborhoods to be safer. I moved the department's mission to one of protecting and serving. I increased the personnel in the department. I also increased the patrols to 24 hours, 7 days a week patrols. We instituted sex offender compliance checks, and was instrumental in bringing internet crimes against children to Montgomery County. I feel like I've gotten Precinct 4 its fair share of resources while fulfilling the constitutional duties of the constable's office. They improved cooperation with other law enforcement agencies. And all this means that Precinct 4 Constable's Office has become the 4th most productive law enforcement agency in the county by volume and by arrest. We're behind the Montgomery County Sheriff's Department, Texas Highway Patrol, and Conroe Police Department. Our office is current with the JP Court. On civil process, our neighborhoods are patrolled and safer. Our men and women in law enforcement have a reliable partner in East Montgomery County.
Okay, great, thank you. In question number 1, so what are the 3 main reasons you're running for office? And as you mentioned in your opening, or when we were talking right when you came in, you're running for your 3rd term. And how long do you intend to serve in this capacity? And do you have any other aspirations in law enforcement?
Well, I currently, like you said, I'm on my 2nd term, and I feel like that completing 20 years as constable is a goal that I want to set. I don't think that's unreasonable, and I'm happy being the constable in Precinct 4. I don't have any desires to move on up to a sheriff or anything like that. I'm happy to serve the community that I work in and live in, and that I'm raising my family.
Okay.
What is the job of the constable, and what would you like to see it become?
Okay. The constitutional job of a constable is primarily to serve the courts. We serve civil process, we serve the warrants of the JP Court, we serve as bailiff, and we're constitutionally bound to serve the courts. Our extra duties that we do, and constable's duties vary from county to county and state to state. Your more rural constables may only serve civil process, but as you get into a more populated area, you see the constable serving more as of a role in law enforcement. And to a lot of the citizens in the community, the constable is the first line of law enforcement that they reach out to.
Would you like to see any changes made there?
Yes, I'm always up for new changes. I'm glad to be in that position to be able to bring those changes, such as the Spillman reporting that has taken effect actually this week with law enforcement in Montgomery County. So yes, I'm always open for new things.
Can you explain that, what the Spillman crime analysis software tool is?
Sure. Well, in Montgomery County, every agency's kind of on a different database where they're reporting and software sharing, sharing of information is, the sheriff's department may use one system, the constables use another, the city polices may use another. Spillman is currently being used by the Conroe Police Department, and it's going to allow us to share information more. It'll bring a process to where when officers are writing their reports, it'll be some uniformity to it. It'll help the DA with everything being uniform, and one of the things I'm really excited about is it'll enable crime tracking, where we'll be able to track and keep databases on where the high crime areas are. For instance, we're having a increase in burglaries in your neighborhood. Well, we'll be able to tell that with Spillman.
Okay. That's one time around.
So before you became elected 7 years ago, were you in law enforcement then?
Yes, sir. Like I said, I've served Montgomery County for over 23 years in law enforcement. I started when I was 19 years old, and I worked at the sheriff's office in the jail as a civilian jailer. And I worked up through the ranks then and until in 2009 when I was elected constable.
And did you work in the constable?
I have worked in the constable's office for a few years prior to.
So if you worked 20 years as constable, you'll have 40-something years?
Close, yes.
Yeah, okay, maybe. Well, what's happened to, you've been in the office long enough to see the budget, several annual budgets. What's happened to the budget in your precinct during those 7 years? Where'd you start and where is it now?
When I took office, it was about $1.5 million, and it's currently now under $3 million, a little under $3 million. And a lot of that's due to the growth in the county and then the growth within the department, keeping up with the needs of the citizens with law enforcement.
Would you talk about your record of arrest and the volume of your activity? Is that arrest per 10,000 people or 100,000 people, or is that actual numbers?
I can give you some actual numbers from, and it's precinct, varies from precinct to precinct, but I have all 5 precincts arrest numbers from January of this year to July of this year, so first.
Well, I would guess that it would be proportioned to the number of people in the area. I mean, if the sheriff has twice as many people and arrests half as many of them, then that would distort the perception of that statistic.
Well, let me tell you, the sheriff's department's countywide.
Yeah.
So their database that I'm telling you that on is from countywide. That's countywide. So that's the population of the whole county. And I'm not sure the population precinct to precinct, but for instance, precinct 4 had 280 felony arrests or felony cases filed with the district attorney's office. In comparison to the next highest is precinct 3, and you know the population of the Woodlands, they had 59. So they're second right there behind us.
Okay.
Transparency is a big thing, and lacking in a lot of cases in Montgomery County. What will you do to improve it? Are you willing to do check register so that people know where their money is going? I guess that's, yeah. What direction would you mold things for the transparency within the department?
I'm not familiar with check register, what you're talking about there, but as far as transparency within the department, I feel like that I'm big on transparency and it's a priority. And we've implemented new programs within the constable's office to make transparency more a priority than what it has been. A few things that we've done is we've started a Constable Citizens Academy. And I know some of you are familiar with the Citizens Academy. Well, this is the first year we've done it. We've had one in the fall, and we're gonna have another one in the spring. We're gonna have to have more than 2 a year because the demand was so overwhelming for it. We filled the first class up, the second class is full. And that allows citizens to come in and see firsthand what law enforcement does. We expanded our academy to not only show what the constable's office does, but all law enforcement in the county. We invite some of the judges over to come and explain the judicial process, as well as the district attorney's office, Judge Metz, the sheriff's office. So when they come to that academy, they see the general function of all law enforcement in Montgomery County. Another thing that we've done is we've started a website that allows for more transparency and more communications with the public. We're in the process of getting the word out to the public that we have that tool available to them. For instance, John, if you have a problem with speeders on your street, you can go to our website and click on the speeder section, and your complaint will register and go straight to a deputy on patrol. So it allows a deputy to get out there quicker and serve that citizen's needs faster. Social media, we've sent an officer to training for social media to let the public know. I would encourage all of you to follow us at our Precinct 4 social media page. I feel the public wants to know what we're doing, and that's a way we're allowing the public to know that.
Okay.
Well, to follow on, the checkbook thing was just where the money's being spent, because
Within the department?
within the department,
Yes.
because we're sitting there as taxpayers and can't find out where the money's being spent within any department, really. What I don't care to know specifically what the salaries are for each individual deputy, but this money is going towards wages, and this is how many employees we have, and
That's a good question, and that information is available through the budgeting office at the sheriff's office, and it's separated into salaries and then operational.
at the sheriff's office.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean, I meant
Okay.
the county auditor's office.
Okay.
To my knowledge, it's all available through open records.
Can you link that at your website, and that way people that go to your website can easily link that, because they're not, like, we didn't know where it is.
I'm not sure, like I said, the auditor's office handles our budgeting process, and the reason I know they have it broke down in that, because that's how we operate our budget. We get the budget every year for budget proposals, and they're broken down into 2 different sections, and I'm aware that is available to the public.
Well, and that's good that it's available that way, but you have to do an open records request.
Right.
A lot of these people have no clue on what to do, how to get it, or how to go about getting the information, where if you pull up the website and here it is, here's our budget, and here's what our expenditures are, then I don't see a problem where that couldn't be. That's part of the transparency I was talking about. Sorry, I know, I'm over my 2 minutes.
Yeah, I wouldn't have a problem with that if the county attorney wanted to implement that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that has fascinated me during this political season, and so I'm asking a lot of the law enforcement candidates, I'll go to a specific example. On October 26th, I see a press release here from Governor Abbott. It has to do with a Dallas County sheriff. And basically the policies being followed by that sheriff is sanctuary city policies, release without releasing to ICE and so forth. The specific little press release here says Governor Abbott included the following actions the state could take to combat policies like those promoted by Sheriff Valdez. And one of them is enacting laws that make it illegal for a sheriff's department to not honor a federal immigration detainer request. That's just a glimpse out of all that. Would you give me your perspective on, if you want to call it, does the governor really have the authority constitutionally to make that kind of a law directing the sheriff's department to do or not do that?
That might be a question over my pay grade, but I can tell you, me personally, I think the Texas Constitution, is amended from time to time, and I'm not 100% sure on all the governor's powers, but I'm sure that there's ways that if he wanted to amend the Constitution, that he could go through the legislative process to do that. I'm not familiar with that sheriff's laws and, or, you know, the procedures that he's put in place as well.
Okay. I'll follow up next time around. Larry?
Okay, how many people are employed at precinct 4 now?
We currently have, counting myself and my chief, so my administrative staff, supervisors, total deputies is 28.
That's administrative and deputies.
That's administrative personnel. Now, we have 5 clerks and secretaries in the office.
That's included in the 28?
No.
Okay, plus 5. Okay, geography-wise, give me a northeast, southwest.
Of precinct 4?
Yeah.
Precinct 4 is the eastern part of the county. It covers the Highway 59 corridor from Kingwood to Liberty County, which is Cleveland, in Montgomery County, and up into parts of Grangerland, maybe half of Grangerland, and all the way to the Harris County line on the eastern end of the district. The city of Houston comes into precinct 4.
In the 7 years, earlier you said that when you started, the budget was 1.5 million, and now it's 3 million. How do you justify that? And I guess, going along with that, how many deputies did you have when you took over?
I believe I had around 10 when I first started, and one reason, I can give you a simple reason for the budget increase is when I took over, there was not a chief deputy position for the constable's office. So we had to ask for that position. Another reason, with growth, we've increased personnel, and that increases the budget as well.
Has the growth in your precinct doubled like the budget has?
I would say the growth is maybe not double, but it's been on the rise. The eastern part of the county is one of it's probably now the fastest growing part of the county with the Grand Parkway and the Grand Texas theme park and different things that are coming into our precinct. I'd be safe to say that.
What's, and that answered a few of my questions there. What's your opinion on open carry and on constitutional carry? And what does your deputies feel about that? And have they gone through any training on that or exposure? Give me an idea kind of where your department is on both of those issues.
Me personally, I feel that citizens have a right to bear arms. Our Second Amendment is clear on that. As far as training, the deputies have taken some training through the legislative updates that is going to help them in dealing with the open carry law once it's enacted. And I'm glad you asked me about that. I wanted to bring that to you, and I can pass this around. I didn't bring enough copies for everybody, but a few years ago, when Representative Tove passed House Bill 1076, he was kind enough to ask me and several other law enforcement department heads in the county to come and testify before the legislators. And I have a one-page letter here if y'all want to read, pass that around and read my stance on the Second Amendment.
Okay. Hold on to that. How are we doing in a minute? Okay, on question 5, this is back to the budget, and the question is in regards to 3 areas where the budget for this office needs to be adjusted. The first one you had indicated, fuel and vehicle maintenance. And the second one, I don't know if you have those in front of you, personnel as growth continues and then commercial vehicle decision. Let me ask that on my next go around.
I'll give you my time to.
Okay, so the first one, fuel and vehicle maintenance.
Okay. The constable's office in Montgomery County have, in the past, the deputy constables have always been on a vehicle auto allowance, where the deputy had to go buy his own vehicle. He had to pay for his fuel, his maintenance, insurance, upkeep. And in the court, 2 years ago, decided to change that back to where the county provides the vehicle. Commissioner's Court, I'm sorry. So the constables has been tasked with now keeping a fuel maintenance, a fuel line item, a maintenance line item, tires, upkeep, wear and tear. So it's new to all the constables in Montgomery County, having to maintain a fuel, vehicle maintenance and operating budget. So that's where I feel the budget can use some adjustment from time to time, because, for instance, we're new at this, so we would have to take, 6 or 10 month average to figure out what a deputy constable's vehicle mileage or fuel usage is for that time period. So all the constables in the county are tasked with that this time.
Okay. And I guess you could compare with other precincts too as well.
Correct.
Maybe and do a benchmark.
Can I ask a question on that one?
Pardon me?
How is that received? Is it turning out good for the constables as well as the citizens with this change? Or is it more of a burden on your office?
It's, it could be taken either way. Some might say a deputy having his own vehicle may not use it as much, he might want to save on his own fuel. So having a county vehicle maybe would, cause him to do more patrols, but, then the deputies, some may say it's a tax write-off, or it's better for them to have their own vehicle. So it can go both ways.
Okay, real quick, is the constable gonna have any jurisdiction on the Grand Parkway?
Currently Grand Parkway does run through part of our precinct.
And you'll have jurisdiction on it, and troopers will too, or City of Houston maybe?
Yes, as it is in our precinct, it will allow us to have jurisdiction. Constable Gable has another part of it coming through his precinct where he'll share that jurisdiction. I think it's up in the air right now on what agency is going to be tasked with patrolling that area. Of course, we will patrol it.
Yeah.
But being, I think it's going to be a state toll road, then the state would be tasked with that patrolling.
Well, let me ask you also, are you familiar with, and to what extent has your precinct been involved in the last few years with no-knock raids and John Doe investigations?
No-knock raids, I can think of one time maybe where we had a no-knock.
In your precinct?
In a situation in our precinct where, of course, no-knock warrants are in place to protect officers as well as destruction of evidence. And they have to be administered under oath to a judge, and that's what they're in place for, officer safety and prevention of destruction of evidence. The one that I'm familiar with was a no-knock warrant, and deputies went in and the suspect was laying in bed with a pistol, so it was justified for officer safety.
Okay. And you familiar with what they call the John Doe investigations?
I don't know if I am.
Well, where they, for some reason, bust into a house and basically investigate whoever they see, and then they basically issue a gag rule. They can't call their boss and tell them why they're late. They can't tell their school why they didn't come to class. They're just threatened with all sorts of punishments if they even disclose what's happened. It was a 2020 kind of thing, but,
Yeah, I'm not familiar with
okay, thanks.
All right, 30-minute mark, are we? Okay. So we have 15 minutes left for Q&A. Probably one more time on
As an
depending on the length of Bob's question.
As an elected official, there's no requirement for you to serve 1 hour, 40 hours, whatever, a week, a month, or even show up for work at all, as long as your department's being run properly. I don't have a problem with anything that you've done as far as that, but I know that there are other elected officials that don't put in at least a 40-hour week for the taxpayers. And that's an issue, and going along with that, there's a lot of deputies from different departments work part-time jobs, but they're on the clock for the constable's offices or whatever office they're in, and while they're doing their part-time extra duty. How do you feel about that? I'm not saying you're,
I feel
not
like-
saying your precinct,
right.
I'm just saying it's happening.
I
and-
feel like that's breaking the law. I feel like if they're, if you're being paid to do a job by the county and you're not doing that job and you're over here doing another job, it's double dipping and it's against the law. The first part of your question, I feel like I'm a full-time constable. I'm at that office, sometimes 10, 12 hours a day. When I came here tonight, I went to an event in Conroe, straight from the office and straight from there to here, so I haven't been home. I work a lot of nights, a lot of evening times, and so after I've been at the office all day, so I believe that as an elected official, when you get to that point, what you're talking about, when you don't come to work enough, that's when you should probably give it up.
Thanks.
Okay. Going back to one of Pat's earlier questions, she asked, what's the role of the constable? You answered, according to the book, correctly and understandably. But also, one of the things that has been a discussion item with various of the candidates is this issue of patrol and interdiction. A lot of your answers involved those types of activities, the need for additional staffing, additional vehicles, things of this nature. What is the proper role of constables as a supplement to the Montgomery County Sheriff's Office? On the one hand, you could say, well, the Sheriff's Office can't cover everything, and so our deputies cover what the sheriff can't. But on the other hand, you could argue that, well, maybe the sheriffs should have more deputies, since actually having crime control is that primary function of the sheriff's office and not of the constable's office. So give the pros and cons and your views on that type of an issue.
Okay. As I told you earlier, the duties and the civil process duties will, I mentioned that we're current with our civil process. Our process is being served on time. We're current with the JP court. Judge Metz just issued a statement the other day how we're current. He's pleased with the process. And working with the sheriff's department is, our department works with the sheriff's department hand in hand every day. One thing, the sheriff's primary duty may be the jail and then secondary patrol, whereas our secondary duty being patrol is more of a proactive. So we're able to go out and maybe stop a crime before it happens. Maybe catch this drug user or dealer before they go steal something from a citizen to pay for their habit. That's when I'm talking about proactive, what I'm talking about. So we work hand in hand. The sheriff's department, as I would say, most law enforcement is understaffed. Well, it's not uncommon in East Marion County, and Bob, I think you've been out there and seen firsthand for a sheriff's department and a deputy constable both going to a priority call. The sheriff's department, the lieutenant commander in East Marion County, it's not uncommon for him to say that by having us out there doing that function makes their job easier.
Okay, so why would it not be more logical, since that's primarily the sheriff's job, to transfer some of your deputies to become sheriff's deputies rather than constable's deputies?
We base it on the needs of the citizens, and the citizens will sometimes call the constable's office or call the sheriff's department, and we get those calls in, and it's increases more demand for deputy constables.
So do y'all base it on the number of calls that come in between sheriff's department and precinct 4 area and you guys?
We base it on the number of calls and stats through our office, and the needs of the citizens for call responsiveness. So yes, it's based on numbers within our office. I'm not sure how the sheriff's department bases their needs.
Okay, yeah, because I was wondering if they benchmark it around between you and Constable Gable and so, and Forest and Hill and whatnot. So.
Right. The sheriff's department this year, for example, in the budgeting process, I think that the sheriff's office received a lump sum that he was allowed to use for personnel, vehicles, whatever he needed. And, the constable's office, based on our needs, I know I received 2 deputy constables, Constable Gable did as well. And I'm pretty sure that's because of the numbers I told you about earlier.
Okay.
Okay, you have 28 deputies and so forth. How many of that 28 of your deputies are reserve?
Those are not counting reserve officers.
Okay, how many reserve?
We have, I think, at any given time, around 10 to 12 reserve officers.
10 to 12.
Reserve officers play a big function in our office. They, the county fair, the East Marin County Fair, as well as the Conroe Fair, our reserves go over there and work. It's a free service that they provide to the taxpayers. And ultimately, like for the fairs, for an example, it keeps the fairs from having to spend money on those services, and they're able to put that back into the children in our community.
What do you supply to the reserve?
We supply everything except their weapon.
So cars, they use their own car or you supply a car?
They can do both. Some of them have their own cars and some of them use the county vehicles.
The only thing that they supply is their weapon?
Correct.
Yeah.
And are they trained as well?
They receive the same training, they go through the same academy, they have the same powers as a full-time police officer. They just don't receive a check.
That's it.
Seems-
Before I interrupt elaborate a little bit more, please, on personnel as the growth continues. I think you said your department doubled since you came in, and the population over the last 7 years, you'd say probably doubled. So what are your projections, say, over the next, 5 years, 10 years? And normally, when departments expand, they may take advantage and realize economies of scale. So what do you see as coming in the next 5, 10 years of growth?
I can compare it to Precinct 3 over here in the Woodlands area. You all know the growth that has exploded over here in the past 10 years. As that growth comes, you're all aware there's more robberies, more burglaries, with the different spikes in crime that you're seeing. So law enforcement needs to be able to keep up with the needs of the citizens and keep the citizens safe. So there's your need for growth. I want to elaborate a little bit on those 28 positions. Like I told you earlier, those are counting the command staff and sergeants. 2 of those positions are livestock deputies. Constable Hill and I split the county in calls for service for livestock. He has 2 deputies and they work every livestock call on the west side of 45. We work every livestock call on the east side of 45. So those 2 deputies are tasked with working abuse and neglect cases on livestock, even outside our precinct lines. One of those 28 is a full-time internet crimes against children investigator. So out of those positions,